Here is your state compliance update for the hemp and cannabis industry in February 2025. Hey, I'm Morgan Davis. I'm a health and wellness attorney based in Raleigh, North Carolina. Let's talk about how to keep your business protected and thriving. One of the hardest things to do in the hemp and cannabis industry right now, if you're a business owner, is to keep up with the constantly changing laws and regulations. It's hard to do for anybody. Enforcement is real these days. And if, let's say, you're a solo entrepreneur or a small-sized business, being able to know where and when and how you can sell your products in all 50 states is a tall order. So my gift to you is every month I like to do these updates, giving you the latest and greatest from the last 30 to 60 days of new legislative trends, new regulations, and things you should know about how and where you can sell your products. So here it comes. As of today, February 21st, 2025, here are the biggest legislative updates. So, not a lot of definitive changes, meaning not a lot of laws have changed in the last 30 days, but there's quite a lot of legislation that has been proposed in the last 30 days. And there's a definite theme, and the theme is kill flower, kill synthetics, keep the beverages. We've talked about how 2025 is predicted to be the biggest year for hemp beverages, and that seems to be certainly playing out in the proposed legislation coming at us at the beginning part of 2025. Let's start with everybody's favorite topic, Texas. So last month, we talked about the fact that the lieutenant governor put his sights on hemp in Texas in December, saying that he was going to make it his number one legislative priority in the new year to rein in the hemp industry in Texas. Good luck, sir. It's huge. That said, he's making good on his promise as he has finally published Senate Bill 3. So, Senate Bill 3 proposes a complete ban on all products containing THC in the state of Texas. That's the sort of banner that's best to be understood. Other things come into play, such as no sales of any type of hemp product to anyone under 21. There's some proposed criminal penalties for selling products that are prohibited under the act. In general, what it does is it takes the definition of cannabis in Texas and broadens it significantly to include hemp in almost any form. It also kind of shoehorns in a recreational cannabis bill where it allows for adult possession and home grow and cultivation, and then says, okay, now the Department of Agriculture and Department of Health and Human Services will go and create all the regulations for, licensing and sales and everything else. Honestly, it's a bit of a mess. It's most likely not going to pass, guys. That said, there are 20 bills that have been proposed in the last 2 months in Texas that deal with marijuana and or cannabis and or hemp, depending on everybody's definition. So this is going to be a year where something's probably going to change in Texas for the hemp industry and or the regulated cannabis industry. SB3 is sort of the top, banner one that everybody's watching in the hemp industry. The other one to be aware of in Texas right now is HB2155, which would ban the sale of all consumable hemp products, including CBD, and through any type of sales, in person, through the mail, online, all of it. Basically just roll back the entire thing. Again, very unlikely that is going to pass, and if it does pass, that it will most likely be challenged in court, and so I don't really see this being the end of the line for Texas hemp, but it's definitely a year to watch to see how all these bills are going to play out and where we're going to end up in 2026. Ohio. So Ohio Senate Bill 86 is a partial ban and a low milligram cap, as well as a beverage carve-out. In general, it prohibits the sale of intoxicating hemp products other than through licensed dispensaries. It sets low mig caps for intoxicating hemp products and defines them a certain way. Really low mig caps, 0.5 milligrams, 2 milligrams, 0.5 milligrams per serving, 2 milligrams per total container, or 25 megs in the aggregate. There is a carve out for drinkable cannabinoid products, and that would allow hemp beverages to exist outside of the dispensary model at still a low mig cap of 10 megs. And so we'll see how that plays out. This is not the first time Ohio has tried to ban or significantly limit the hemp industry and sort of shoehorn most of it into the regulated industry, but might actually work this time. So we'll see. Minnesota, one of the more permissive states at this moment, has finally announced a whole slew of new licenses, including a micro business license that would open the market to a lot of people. So I know a lot of people this week are pretty excited about applying for a micro license in Minnesota. Make sure that you contact an attorney before applying for those licenses. They can be rather complicated. This one doesn't look to be, but still would be helpful. As for hemp businesses, Minnesota has announced that, so a while back when Minnesota launched its new regulations and its new sort of low potency, high potency cannabinoid regulatory framework plus regulated cannabis framework, they announced that if you were a hemp business selling under low potency into Minnesota, you needed to register. Everybody needs to register. Prior to the new licenses coming out, you have to be registered in order to convert your registration to a new license. Meaning, in order to make sure that at no point your business has to stop selling into Minnesota, you need to register now if you are not already registered. They anticipate that come fall, the new license structure will be issued and you will be able to convert your registration into a license. However, if you do not have a registration, you will have to stop selling until you obtain a license. And like with all new frameworks, we have no idea how long it will take them to get through all of the applications for licenses that undoubtedly will be filed. So please go register your company if you are selling in Minnesota. South Carolina. Very interesting. So last year, South Carolina saw a boom in the production of hemp beverages. Several big companies are based in South Carolina, and there was an announcement from the South Carolina government that they were taking a very permissive, very friendly stance on hemp, specifically hemp beverages in the state of South Carolina. The beginning of this year has seen a slew of bills filed that would significantly limit the intoxicating hemp industry in the state of South Carolina. H4004 would specifically outline a 3-tier system for beverages. H3935 would regulate all hemp products. H3924 seeks to ban Delta 8 and all other synthetics and only allow products that contain Delta 9 THC in them to be sold in the state of South Carolina. It also sets very low mid caps of 0.5 milligrams per serving. So there's lots of stuff being proposed in the state of South Carolina. Again, whether or not any of it will actually pass, we'll see. The rhetoric coming out of the legislature is that this is the beginning of a long conversation, and that ultimately they'd like to find themselves somewhere in the middle where, young people are protected, consumers are protected, and at the same time, business is allowed to thrive. Usually, as with all cases, the word thrive is where we sort of find ourselves debating. Certain people think that thrive means extremely low mid caps and limiting the number of intoxicating products that are in the market. Others, most people in the hemp industry who want to save their business, argue that thriving means allowing the products to exist but putting in safeguards, whether it's certificates of analysis, testing standards, labeling standards, manufacturing standards, et cetera, that allow the current market to continue to be legal in South Carolina while weeding out the quote-unquote bad players and bad products. Missouri has been a sort of battleground for the hemp industry for the past 2 years. Several times they've tried to ban the hemp industry altogether there or shoehorn it into the regulated cannabis industry there. None of it's been successful. They're taking another crack at it though. So there are competing bills in Missouri right now to regulate the hemp industry. One is a very extensive framework that regulates all products and limits most synthetics. That's HB393 in Missouri. Okay, it's going to put in licensing, manufacturing requirements, tax collection. It's going to adopt a total THC standard for inhalables and flower. It's going to set milligram caps for all products. And then there's HB463, which is proposed by and supported by the alcohol industry and beverage industry in Missouri, which establishes a 3-tier system that we're used to seeing in a lot of alcohol states, where you're going to have a hemp manufacturer, a distributor, and a retailer, and all 3 are separate tiers. They're all licensed, and they have their own regulations specifically for hemp beverage. The traditional hemp industry is not a fan of the 3-tier system. It's highly regulated. It bifurcates. It doesn't allow a lot of people to be able to vertically own from manufacturing to retail, right? And puts in a lot of wiggle room and play for distributors and retailers alike to take over margin, et cetera. But we'll be watching to see which, if either of these bills gets passed and adopted. Looks like there will be change to the Missouri hemp framework this year, but none of it looks like it's going to be an outright ban. Mississippi, singing the same song, ban synthetics, save the beverages. There are separate pieces of legislation to ban intoxicating hemp products in Mississippi. They have passed both the House and the Senate and are now being mulled over in opposite chambers. So Mississippi Senate Bill 2314 is the total ban. It essentially says any product containing any type of hemp, no matter what, still stays a Schedule 1 in the state of Mississippi. That's probably not going to fly. HB1502 is more of an adoption of a total regulatory framework, again, trying to regulate existing hemp consumable products and with a specific carve-out for beverages. So reduces the legal threshold for violations from 0.5% to 0.3%. The changes who's going to be doing the oversight from the Department of Agriculture to the Department of Health and Human Services. Again, puts in licensing and compliance requirements at every level: retailer, wholesaler, manufacturer, processor. Adds in labeling requirements, adds a 3% excise tax on products, and adds a 5 milligram cap on 12-ounce beverages, and bans all artificially derived cannabinoids. So that's going to include your Delta 8, your Delta 10, your HHC, and THCA, which is not artificially derived, but they're throwing it in there. Alabama's up next. Alabama, which has been one of the most permissive and unregulated states in the whole of the United States when it comes to hemp since the 2018 Farm Bill, has a proposed total ban sitting in the Alabama Senate, which is Senate Bill 132. It basically says that only non-psychoactive cannabinoids derived from or found in hemp are exempt from Alabama's Schedule 1. Similar to the total ban proposed in Mississippi, it basically says if it is a psychoactive or intoxicating product, it stays a Schedule 1 drug. Therefore, it's federally illegal and illegal at the state level. Unlikely to pass in Alabama, but we'll wait and see. Last is not a legislative update, but a lawsuit update that I'm quite interested to see what happens and quite happy to see. A THCA lawsuit was filed in Tennessee at the beginning of this month. A buyer who was shipping flower from the state of Oklahoma to the state of North Carolina had their shipment seized in Sevierville, Tennessee. So the flower that was being shipped is hemp flower compliant with the 2018 Farm Bill, meaning it was at or less than 0.3% Delta-9 THC by dry weight. It is what most of us have come to refer to as THCA flower. Seized in Tennessee by law enforcement, the owner was then criminally charged. Those charges were dismissed. But while the shipment was sitting in the sheriff's department, while the charges were pending, they improperly stored it. And basically what happened? It decarboxylated and became an illegal product. So what happened? Sheriff's department didn't store it in a heat-deprived, light-deprived state, and it decarboxylated. The THCA converted to Delta-9 THC, and it became illegal marijuana, and therefore had to be destroyed. It was over $800,000 worth of flower. It's a huge amount of flower. So the plaintiff in this case is suing the sheriff's department over the loss of their flower and for damages associated with that. Very interested to see where this lawsuit goes. As you recall from last month, there was a recent lawsuit won in the state of Tennessee for raids that were conducted by law enforcement that were not supported by probable cause, and they filed a civil lawsuit and an injunction against them because they basically went into a bunch of stores and seized a bunch of product and claimed that it was illegal, but they never proved that it was illegal and they didn't have anything to back it up. And the plaintiffs in that case won that lawsuit and recovered over $700,000 from the local law enforcement offices. If this suit does the same thing, I will be very interested to see what the effect is across the country. Why? Because we are seeing this more and more often, where police will seize flower, whether it's large amounts or small amounts, and argue that it's illegal, argue that it's in violation of some law. Lo and behold, they either don't have the test results, or they store it improperly, or they test it improperly. All that being said, they never manage to prove that it is in fact illegal when it's seized. And you have businesses who lose out on a lot of money because they lose out on the product. They have to deal with the headache of hiring someone like me to try and get it back, or deal with criminal charges in the meantime. And it's months and months and sometimes years of their lives before a case is dismissed and they have an opportunity to say, hey, what about the damage that you've caused to me? Perhaps if more lawsuits like this are won, then officers will start to realize that they can't just seize something because they think it's marijuana. That now that hemp and marijuana exist, especially when you're talking about things that are shipped with certificates of analysis, that are shipped as part of a legal business, they need to do more than say, well, it looks and smells like marijuana under my training and experience. They need to actually take the time to test it or look at the certificates of analysis that are provided, and not just decide that if it looks and smells like marijuana, therefore it is marijuana. That is the update for the month. I hope this update was helpful. Come back next month for more. If you find that this isn't enough for you and you need something more for your business and your products, we do provide 50 state summaries for our clients on specific to their product line or specific to their area of the business. And we'd love to provide that service to you. So give us a call and we'll try and help you out. If not, see you next month for more.